This is Stare Down the Bull. I'm your host, Susan Hunt. Around here, we tackle the hard stuff: how to lead with clarity, leveraging AI, and turn strategy into real results. My guest today brings a powerful perspective on how to do exactly that. Let's dive in. On this episode of Stare Down the Bull, we are joined by Tim Delisle, founder of 514 and former head of development at Nike. From his early days at Cornell to building a company that was acquired by Nike, Tim's career has been shaped by big bets and bold transitions. From New York to Oregon, from founder to global product leader. At Nike, he helped drive major initiatives at one of the world's most iconic brands before stepping out again to build what was next. In this conversation, we talk about the risk that scares him the most, the lessons learned from acquisition and leadership, the mentors who challenged him, and the moment he truly had to stare down the bull. We also explore why he founded 514, how he builds innovation, yet accountability of his teams, and the advice he'd give to anyone launching their first company. This is a conversation about courage, creativity, and building through uncertainty. Thank you for joining. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Susan. Glad to be here.
So Cornell shaped the start of your journey. What's one lesson or experience from college that still influences how you approach business and innovation today?
I think there's several things. I think that one of the biggest lessons learned was resilience and making sure that no is just the beginning of a conversation. In sales, that's a huge part of how we think about kind of selling big deals. But originally, I got rejected from the program that I'd applied to at Cornell Tech, which is in New York City. I was previously at Cornell in Ithaca and decided to transfer to an engineering degree after doing a business one. And I was deemed to be not technical enough to become an engineer. Which I mean is right. Like I did anatomy and cell biology in undergrad. I was then in business school, and the dean of the program back then, her name's Deborah Estrin, allowed me to kind of plead my case, and she enabled me to kind of join the program. There were conditions for me joining, completing a bunch of prerequisites, and kind of proving that I was technical enough to rumble with some of the incredible engineers that I was going to join within the program. But she gave me a shot, and without that shot, my career would have never been what it is. And so her open-mindedness to giving people who were really hungry a shot, as well as kind of my my tenacity to just say, I reject your rejection, please give me a shot. It really shaped how I then viewed the world, where it's like, no, it's just the beginning of the conversation. And then moving kind of forward through the academic career, between my two grad degrees, the one in Ithaca and then the one in New York City, I got to intern at Merck, where I got the first exposure to what it was like to work within a large enterprise, like one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world,
Yeah.
complex organization to navigate, got to play around with data within the enterprise, learn how painful it was. Like all of those things were formative experiences for how I view the world today, and what led me kind of down the path of the companies that I've started, and kind of the niche that I'm really focused in on. All the way to like once I actually started the program, I got exposure to many mentors. Greg Pass was one of the professors that was teaching us back then. He was the CTO of Twitter before he started teaching at Cornell Tech, and getting to learn from one of the first kind of or one of the idols in our industry of like who built
Yeah.
Twitter from the ground up and re-engineered all the foundational infrastructure and work from Rails all the way to Scala to like some of the crazy investments that he'd made as a CTO. Like just getting to learn from those people was absolutely insane. David Tisch was another one of our professors. David's a general partner at Box Group now. And David's a very challenging person. He's got strong opinions and he shares them openly. And I remember a conversation with David where he was pushing me to drop out of grad school, and I couldn't because I was an immigrant and needed the visa to be able to stay in the US. And just the constant challenge and just kind of facing the adversity and the pushback and the adversity that we got within this incredible program was amazing. So got exposure to some of these incredible mentors, and then that allowed me to get comfortable with fundraising from venture capitalists. I still remember those experiences today and kind of the feelings that I felt just standing David in the eye and just like really looking up to him, but then being kind of bashed down for not doing things the way that he thought, and then needing to stand my ground and push back. All of those things ultimately formed where like really kind of backed up where I am today. And even previously when I was at Cornell and Ithaca, some of the professors who I had exposure to ended up investing in my first company. And one of the proudest moments of my life is writing them a massive check off that original investment. And so I've had the pleasure of just joining an environment where excellence was at the heart of what everyone was doing. And then I I got exposure to some incredible friends, mentors, and relationships that I still cherish to this day.
I have to say, I work with a lot of technical CROs, and you're really definitely you have a totally different mindset all the way around of a straight up technical CEO, which I think has served you really, really well from a very early age in your life. You think differently, it's a really interesting mix of technical and business acumen that you serve up when you talk to anybody, whether it's a client. And I think this is why you're able to get all of these really incredible customers off the bat and buyers for your original company. It's a pretty impressive mix, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, my technical acumen, I think, just allows me to approach pretty much any problem in with an engineer's mindset. And I you and I think, both know John McMahon. And
Mhm.
the first time I got to meet John, I was surprised. Like I was expecting kind of a boisterous, loud dude, and John's a pretty understated, kind of shy guy. And when I originally talked to him, he once he gets passionate, obviously he gets very passionate, but he reflected on his view of sales and told me like, "Look, Tim, like sales is just about engineering a system, and you build your
True.
processes, and like you get to learn about kind of the the ways of working that repeatedly close deals, as opposed to kind of the art of the sale where you might get lucky once in a while on some big deal." And I always thought that was incredibly powerful. Like his approach to selling is very much the same approach that an engineer would take to designing a complex system, and to try to build the best possible system that you can build. And that experience of meeting him kind of stuck with me over the years. But yeah, I think that also comes from my dad, who's just a very, very strong engineer and has had this constant kind of the relentless mindset in building systems, and also this deep understanding that systems start from the people up. And so even though I do think like an engineer, I think there's another component to this, which is everything starts with people. And as we build and engineer our systems, like it starts with the people that you work with, it starts with the team that you inherit or decide to build. And then you engineer the systems around those people and those teams. And so I've always been fascinated about both the systems that you build, but also the people that make up those systems and how you get the
Yeah.
best out of them.
Yeah. So your first company was acquired by Nike, which was a huge milestone. What was the scariest part you had to make during that process, and what did it teach you?
There were a lot of there are a lot of scary things. I think the first thing is you end up selling a part of you when you sell a company. As a
Yes.
founder, that company is something that you built from the ground up. It's something that you've worked so hard, like the blood, sweat, and tears idea behind companies is very real. The first scary moment that you face when selling a company is the decision to just sell it. like, how do you go about making this decision? It's not just about the money in the bank, it's also about the impact that you'll have on people's lives, and I found myself in this really weird, kind of dark place when making that particular decision. Like, I it was such an enormous decision, like, there's tens of
Yeah.
millions of dollars that exchange hands, and you have to figure out your why and what's actually driving you, and the enormity of that decision meant that I wasn't sleeping very well during that period of needing to make this decision, and when I'm not sleeping well, I don't make the best decisions, and so I had to get into a mode of how do I make the best possible decision here with this deep understanding that I'm not operating at my best right here, right now. And I just started pulling my kitchen cabinet of advisors, and everyone that I talked to had a different framework, and one that stuck, I think one of the best, for me was one that Jeremy Levine, who was a partner at Bessemer and was an investor in our company back in the day, he said, and he was the last person I talked to. Like, Jeremy's a very intense person, and I respect his opinions. I always want to be ready when I'm having a conversation with him. And his framework was quite simple. He was like, Tim, just flip the equation. Are you excited about investing in the thing that you're going out to do at Nike? And having this opportunity to join one of the most iconic brands that was going through a massive transformation. Nike had gone from primarily selling uh, to retailers to now building a direct relationship with their consumers, and so they
Yeah.
they had a D2C um, kind of play that they were running and transforming the company around that. That was particularly exciting to me. Like, this idea of building a direct consumer relationship from one of the most iconic brands in the entire universe is particularly compelling and exciting. And so when I started to look at the opportunity, it's like, yeah, like I would love to invest in Nike and its transformation and what it is that it was doing. And so I ended up making the decision to sell, and had massive support from everyone around the table. Obviously, it helps when everyone's making good money. But yeah, I think that was an incredibly scary moment. And then once you actually get to sell, you got to actually consummate the relationship and close the transaction. We had everything that could go sideways. We had one of the key people quit before, and I ended up losing a bunch of chin hair from the stress. Eventually, it grew back, but there's a series of decisions that you end up making, and obviously, it's scary. Like, the first meeting that I was in, I think at Nike, where I ever got to speak to the team that I was joining, was like 8,000 people.
Wow.
You have to talk to 8,000 people at once. The largest meeting I'd ever been in was like 30 before that. So I had to step into some pretty big shoes, and I had a huge amount of imposter syndrome of like, why the hell are these people trusting a 29-year-old to come in and run what was a very, very large team? And I was humbled by the experience, and it was equally scary. And I look back at it, and I wouldn't change a day, like a thing. Like, I loved every moment.
It was incredible. I mean, you went in as after you sold your company, you went in as the head of development at Nike, and you were under 30 years old at the time, which is incredibly young to run a group that size. I mean, what was like the boldest risk besides talking to 8,000 people? Once you get past 10 people, it's all the same anyways, Tim. But what was the boldest risk that you had to take on product or initiative, and how did it pay off or not in that
Yeah,
situation?
we were. I think we were around 40 VPs of engineering. The very, very small group of folks, like, I was part of the top 400 leaders within the company. Formerly, my title was VP of data engineering. The I inherited this pretty large group, and one of the things that became quite clear for me was that we didn't have a sense of all of the things that we had built. And when you don't really know what you've built, understanding where you want to go is quite difficult.
Yeah.
And so the up to that point, a lot of the leadership had made decisions to inventory the things that were built in non-technical ways. So they would run these programs of trying to consolidate all of the data pipelines and data products that we built. And in reality, what you would get is just like a bunch of spreadsheets floating around the organization.
Yeah.
And depending on which group you'd ask, the answers would be different. And I just felt like um, we needed to have a technical solution to this particular problem. What what I ended up taking as a risk, which ended up actually failing, but I'm glad that we actually took the risk, was this idea of creating a single repository for all of the work that my team was doing. This is a very controversial approach in engineering teams where you create one place where all of the code gets managed. And the main central thesis there was by doing so, we would force the teams to consolidate their work, identify where they had duplicate work items. Like you might have one team building a pipeline
Yeah.
for this particular data product, another team building the same one. And by having full visibility into the code, like your teams can ideally kind of catch themselves when they're about to duplicate functionality. Um, and that was a bold risk because one, it's a very controversial thing to do. Not all engineers have worked in a setting where everyone's working from a single repository. It has a little bit of a command and control connotation to it, and but in reality, it's just a way of organizing work. And frankly, it forces teams to make their work visible, which which is quite scary for
Yes.
many of them, especially if they've been hiding certain things or not necessarily working on work that was strategically aligned. And so I ended up kind of pulling the trigger and getting the teams to work towards this consolidation. And early on, it was going quite well. But what I failed to notice was the culture of top-down decision making that had settled into Nike
Mm.
and how that culture was creating a hesitation or a resistance to change within the engineering teams. Um, and there were a ton of really odd decisions that had been made. Like, a lot of the data engineering team had been created from consolidating job codes where analysts who had never been to, like, didn't have computer science backgrounds or degrees were immediately given titles of data engineer because they knew how to write a couple scripts in Python. And unfortunately, that's just not how data engineering, or at least best in class data engineering teams can be scaled. Is you need proper software development best practices and skill
Yeah.
sets to really get the best out of those organizations. And so in doing this kind of monorepo consolidation effort, I started to get a lot of resistance from the actual teams. Those teams started to escalate. And unfortunately, I didn't have the support and engagement from senior leadership. I thought I could kind of run this on my own, and it turns out I couldn't. So between not understanding how much kind of senior level support you need in an organization to like soften the political blows that you're going to take when you take
Yeah.
controversial decisions, all the way down to the lack of kind of awareness of the cultural underpinnings that had been undergoing and like the historical cultural underpinnings. It just turned into kind of a failed initiative. But what's cool is even in failure, Nike has just kind of this ethos of just do it, and they've got some mantras that they write on the wall, like be on the offense always, where when you win as a team, like those types of things, like when you start really living those values, you realize that you can fuck things up and that you can learn from your mistakes and that you can fail and get back up and continue to pursue some really, really ambitious goals. And as a company, Nike's just has this kind of winner attitude and this winner hustle type of culture. And I always thought it was just this beautiful thing that you could fail and still recover and make up for it. And yeah, this monorepo effort that I went through was just like this beautiful failure, and I learned a bunch from it, and I took some risks, learned from my mistakes, and now I feel so much better about tackling those types of problems in the future within both big and small organizations.
That's pretty awesome that you did that, and even if you failed, it's okay because, I mean, they're they're not right either. The fact that they have this structure in place and that everybody is used to it doesn't mean that it's right. It's actually pretty much of a failure in most companies that I've worked with over the years, is they get stuck in these structures and then they really have a difficult time getting out of them, and they'll bring in someone like you, Tim, who has all of these, new ideas that are actually great ideas, but they can't get out of their own way fast enough to make them happen until something occurs that they're forced to do it, you know? Like the repository.
Stock price
Yeah,
dropping to by
yeah,
60% will
exactly.
could do it for you.
Yeah, and I would have to say that almost every IT, and I have a big enterprise background, so I've worked with tons of IT organizations across every vertical in the world, and I think that it's very common that they have no idea what they've built. It's, like, very common. That repository idea is actually a really good product idea if you could figure out how to put that together
Yeah.
because
I mean, it
they
exists
have no
today, it's still
idea.
on GitHub. Yeah, and
Yeah, exactly, it's GitHub.
it's funny because you in many cases, right, it's the technologies people will we're in the business of selling technology, and so we immediately go to technology will be the solution, but in these large organizations, often the people and the processes are the things that get in the way, and so I think, one of the big things from my experience at Nike is just there's so many ways to do these things, and to be like, to be right is not to be effective, and
Right.
I I spent so much of my time trying to fight the structure. And in reality, I was like, I got to a point where we had just hired some guy from Microsoft. His name's Carl Watson. And I remember being in this meeting where I was with a bunch of other VPs where we'd worked in kind of structures where it's called single threaded leadership. A lot of those people were from Amazon. And it's just like at Amazon, there's one person who's in charge of that one business metric and is responsible for it. This is called single threaded leadership models. And Nike is historically one of the biggest matrixed organization like Microsoft, where no one has explicit ownership of the one thing, and everyone just needs to influence the matrix as a whole to make any one decision. And I remember being in this meeting with a bunch of these VPs, and everyone was bitching and moaning about the matrix. And Carl, who'd come from this legendary matrix, which is Microsoft,
Yeah.
was like, "Yo, stop the bitching and stop the moaning." If you look at the Fortune 500,
This is what it is. This is it.
100 of them are pure matrix organizations like Microsoft and Nike. 100 of them are pure single threaded leader models like Amazon and other legendary items. I think Cisco was one of the big single threaded leader models. And the other 300 are kind of a mix. Like some departments are single threaded leaders, some departments are matrix. So just like, shut the hell up and like go do the work was kind of Carl's point. And that stuck with me throughout the entire rest of my time there. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to learn to work within this thing, and I'm going to learn to love to work with within this thing because it's a challenge and it's an opportunity. And I like to learn, so might as well frame it as a learning opportunity. Um, and then ultimately, whether I'm right or wrong doesn't really fucking matter. The stock price of these companies and the revenue numbers and everything like from all the core metrics that measure us in the market are ultimately the things that tell us if we're right or wrong. And so I tried to get into a mindset of, am I being effective in this particular situation? And early on there, I think the categorical answer is no. I was 29-year-old who's trying to figure this shit out. But by the time that I left, I think I started to understand craziness and the madness of these organizations, and I started to appreciate it, and I started to become a lot more effective within the matrix, and that was cool.
Well, the hardest thing that I think the hardest thing for anybody to learn in business is to figure out how to be your authentic self within different frameworks or
Yeah,
within different matrix because they all have their own personalities. And the question becomes, okay, this is the thing, this is what they're about, this is how they do things. How do I remain myself,
Yep.
but also become a highly effective person in this environment?
Exactly.
That's like a really fun challenge, and it's a really hard thing to be good at, especially if you move around, and I think your generation's actually a lot better at it than the boomers or Gen X are because, we would stay somewhere for 30 years. You guys are kinda used to moving around, and when you do that, you get a really interesting swath of experience that you otherwise wouldn't have. You get into I'll never forget the shock of me leaving Nuance and going to Salesforce and thinking everything that I did at Nuance was going to be exactly the same as at Salesforce. And nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, it literally couldn't have been any different. But the cool thing was I could bring all of that experience that I had from Nuance, especially like around legal negotiations and stuff, which no sales executives did that at Salesforce, which I thought was really weird and
Yeah,
help drive the business faster, harder, get through contracts and stuff in a different way than they were used to, So there's all this stuff that you can bring to an environment that the companies don't have, that they lack, that they need, and vice versa. So
love that framework, yeah.
the other thing that you did was you moved from New York to Oregon, which is like a pretty big change. I mean, I would think that's a massive change, actually. So you seem to be thriving in Oregon. You're still there. You haven't moved back to New York. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm a big believer in happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah. So
And
she enjoys it out there?
yeah, she thrives out here.
Oh, it's awesome.
I'm a city boy through and through. I could live in a 800 square foot apartment my entire life and be happy. And I think what we like we have 2 kids now, and the idea of raising 2 kids in New York City is pretty daunting. And so I'm glad she pushed for us to make this change. And Nike's headquarters is here in Oregon. I I think the combination of just being close to HQ, being part of the what is a very office culture company, and I really felt like being close to the leadership team was going to be an important part.
Definitely.
Plus, kind of empowering my wife to just live the life that she wanted was really critical. And like we've got a lovely home, the kids get to run around. Oregon's just this beautiful environment where you get this city feel with paired with just like some of the most beautiful nature and kind of hiking, surfing, skiing, and snowboarding. Like Mount Hood's one of the
Gorgeous.
few mountains in the world where it's open 365 days a year. And so we just get this incredible environment to raise kids in without breaking the bank, right? Like we
Yeah.
healthcare is stupendously expensive in this country, and it's stupendously expensive here, but it's 1/10 of what it is in New York City. I think
Right.
we're in a place where we've got space. My current company is an fully remote company, and so the it really doesn't get in the way of kind of the opportunities that we have in front of us. And from like I obviously as CEO of the company, I've got to handle both the product development side of the house, and I get to partner with my team there, but also the go to market side of the house. And a lot of people are buying on Zoom these days, and we haven't yet felt where the distance from the metropolitan centers is a big issue. Like we'll get on a plane whenever we need to, but it hasn't really gotten in the way. And we have this incredible opportunity. Like I pull my team together every 6 weeks, the full company. We're 19 people now, and we come together every 6 weeks, and we'll go to Oregon where we work. We've got 20 people working from my house during the week. I wouldn't be able to do that in a
No.
900 square foot apartment in New York City, right?
True.
And so we've got just this incredible lifestyle that we've been able to build for ourselves. And funny enough, the second go around doesn't mean you're working less than 6
No.
days a week, right? Like, I still doing the 80 to 100-hour weeks and
Yeah.
loving it, but, like, doing it in this environment makes it pretty easy, and we've got this wonderful setup, so yeah, it's very different. I miss the main thing I miss from New York is just, like, the energy and the vibe, right? Like, you get out, I don't
And the
know,
food.
oh, Oregon's got great food
Oregon's
too,
got
so
good
look,
food, but
yeah, we're
yeah,
pretty blessed with the food out here. But New York has just this vibe where you get out of the office at 11 PM and you're just like, "Ah, fuck it." It's just, like, still bustling and, like, I could go to the grocery store.
absolutely.
Here, by 8 PM, the grocery stores are closing, right? So,
Yeah.
I miss the energy of New York, and, like, I travel out there quite frequently, and I'm just love I
You
love
love it.
everything about the city. So we're trying to figure out what the next moves are. We're eventually gonna move it back east for sure. But now trying to figure out, is it gonna be the Miamis of the world, the New York Cities, or the Montreals? We're still figuring that piece out.
All good choices, in my opinion.
Tier 1 cities. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, all good choices. So you did found, 514. What gap in the market and problem are you solving there? Let us know what you're addressing. I would really like to talk about your company a bit.
Yeah, so my first experiences with data was really in that internship at Merck, and, there I just understood I started to get a feel for how hard it is to access data within the enterprise. Um, we we we've always dreamt of, like, the data-driven enterprise, right? And making that a reality is very, very, very hard. And historically, where people have gone is to ask the IT organization to build these giant data warehouses. They're highly governed. They're very heavyweight systems where all of your enterprise data goes. And then data scientists, data engineers, data analysts get access to kind of this universal environment. And the central issue with that approach is that most data scientists, analysts, and data engineers aren't building production applications. And when you look at a modern enterprise, the way you end up deriving value from the data is when that value is realized within an application where an end user has a high quality workflow. And so if you put yourself in the shoes of a planner within Nike, these planners need applications and visibility into the supply chain so that they can make decisions on inventory and manufacturing runs. So a planner will say, hey, I need X number of shoes from this particular factory in Vietnam using this particular type of SKU for the color of the leather and kind of the silhouette of the shoe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the way that a company like Nike or a company of Nike's scale does this is they build applications for those planners to do their work. And ideally, the planner would have a single pane of glass for making decisions and then a single pane of glass for doing their work, like creating the manufacturing run, ordering from different suppliers and kind of pulling all of that supply together so that they can bring it to market in whichever market they want to bring it into. And so without an application that serves an end user, your data can only be as valuable as kind of the ad hoc random reports that are sent to executives. And you and I both know that executives are pretty useless in deriving value from an enterprise. Like at the end of the day, the planner is so much more important than the VP of planning in deriving true value for an organization,
Yeah, true.
right? The VP of planning is going to be making kind of resource allocation decisions, but they're not the ones doing the supply runs that the business runs day to day on. And so we as kind of organizations and as enterprises have started to really serve these end users with a product mindset, with an ability to deliver value. And you might build or buy some of those products and applications, but at the end of the day, the way you derive value is with end user applications. And so when we looked at the entire landscape for data within the enterprise, we started to realize that this data today is locked in these heavyweight data warehousing systems, but that's really not how we're building value within the enterprise. We build value within the enterprise with these highly aligned, highly business aligned software engineering teams. And so within Nike, you'll have a software engineering team that supports the planning organization. You'll have a software engineering team that supports the marketing organization. You'll have a software engineering team that supports the sales organization. And this collection of software engineering teams are building the apps and the workflows and the data systems that support each one of these business functions. And so we started to ask ourselves, is there a better way of activating the enterprise data within large organizations and small organizations as well? So can we make the data available to these software engineering teams as opposed to locking it into these large scale enterprise IT systems? And so the gap that we really wanted to address, we wanted to make data accessible, easy to work with, and available for all software engineers within the enterprise, not just the highly specialized data people. And we were lucky enough to kind of be sitting on two pretty significant trends. The first one is AI, where AI is democratizing the ability to build high quality software quickly.
Yep.
And so we're seeing more and more software being written today. And the idea of building custom software within an organization as opposed to procuring it from these kind of large scale vendors like the SAPs or the O9s of the world or those types of things. It's transforming, and we're seeing a lot more um, bullishness on bringing a lot of software back in house and being able to build the software that we want for the teams. And so this trend of AI making software development more accessible to a larger set of teams was really kind of sparking our conviction in this space. And the second one is in lighter weight data systems. So there's a whole bunch of emerging technologies now behind ClickHouse and DuckDB, which are new kind of entrants in the market that are competing directly with the Snowflakes and the Databrickses of the world. And both of these providers provide a very lightweight experience to access and play with data that enables a developer to do that work directly on their laptop, as opposed to doing it in a central cloud system. And to us, that's incredibly powerful. Like the confluence of this local first developer experience plus AI means that we're in this kind of market where we can start to build an alternative to these IT centric data systems. And we're not there to displace these ways of working, right? Like IT is always going to have its place. The data warehouses will always be there in the world. But we think that the growth that we're seeing in the software development side of the market means that a much, much larger proportion of the data that's going to get activated in the enterprise is going to get activated in end user facing applications as opposed to in Tableau reports somewhere within
Right.
the enterprise. And
Yeah.
that to us is just an opportunity that we couldn't miss.
That's exciting. Really exciting, Tim. And I know you will turn it into something major. There's no doubt about that. So we're running out of time, but this is Stare Down the Bull. So I have to ask you what your stare down the bull moment was or is that you just have had to face something that's so difficult and complex and you just stood up and did it. Maybe it's the Nike thing, maybe it's something else.
I I think my latest stare down the bull moment that I'm gonna reflect on, I think, for many years going down the line is let me take a step back and give a little bit of context. That when you pull together a whole bunch of incredibly smart people and executives, there is an inclination to look at data to inform all of their decisions. And if you did this in your investment portfolio where you just look at valuations and you ask yourself, is this the right time to enter the market or not? You'd be remiss because if you only enter the market when the market seems cheap, you would have missed a whole bunch of opportunities and bull runs, and you'd actually be less rich than if you were progressively entering the market by neglecting whether it's an expensive market or an inexpensive market to go down.
Very true.
What's interesting to me is this realization where being a data guy, I love to inform my decisions with data. But the truth of the matter is the data needs to be used to inform your convictions in life, and then you need to stick to your convictions in life. And you cannot continue to second guess every single decision or to revisit your convictions continuously, or else you will constantly be changing your strategy and constantly be changing your decisions, as opposed to refining the execution against a given strategy. And so the latest stare down the bull moment that I've had that I think in this past year is just like I've built up this incredible executive team. And every day I wake up and it's like, God damn, I'd work for every single one of these people. And at the same time, by building such a high quality executive team, I've also let myself continue to like let them steer my conviction where the data was pulling us, as opposed to really figuring out how do we execute to collect the data that we need for the next wave of conviction. And we uh, I've had to now, like over the past couple of months, really build up my muscle memory to challenge them on like, no, look, like you've been working on this strategy and you've got a really great strategy. Stop second guessing yourself and move towards execution. And that is so difficult to do when all of your executives are smarter than you are. And like they can
Mm,
build a very good case for this is how and why I need to be rethinking this particular strategy. And I'm so blessed to be working with these folks who I love working with them, and they teach me so much on a day-to-day basis, but I've had to grow the confidence and just calling them on their shit and just being like, "Yo, no, you presented something to me that was incredible 2 weeks ago, and now you're arguing your way through it. Like, you're rationalizing your way for how you need to change the thing that you had conviction around 2 weeks ago. I want you to continue to have that conviction on the thing 2 weeks ago and run your bet through and play out your bet, and I'm excited to be working with you on playing out your original bet." And I've been running this play now for 2 quarters, and every time that I've run it really, really well, the results that this team can generate are just absolutely insane, and I've had the pleasure of seeing the best from them, and every single day, I'm just like, "God damn, these people are just incredible," and I wake up excited and stoked to be doing the really hard things that we've gotta do, which is build a company that shouldn't exist and make it exist,
right.
and, I cherish every moment there, and I cherish, getting challenged by them.
So the leadership, that's leadership. And being not only yourself being authentic within the framework that you're in, but also encouraging other people to be authentic within the
Exactly,
framework as well. Yeah,
and having
that's
the
good
conviction.
leadership. Yeah, that's awesome, Tim. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining Stare Down the Bull. It was really great to have this conversation, and I wish you the most luck as always with your new company. I'm sure it's going to be incredible, and you'll probably end up selling it to some big company again before we know it. I'll be looking
Who
out for
knows?
that.
Maybe we'll go public one day and it'll be,
That'll be amazing. Thank you again so much for joining us. Really great conversation.
always a pleasure, Susan. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Stare Down the Ball. If today's conversation sparked new ideas, share it with a colleague and keep the momentum going. The future belongs to leaders who act, so subscribe and join us again next week.